So today's story is likely going to piss a lot of you off, and honestly, it is deservedly so. We're going to be revisiting the case involving Ethan Liming, the young man who was brutally murdered by 3 black individuals, and the reason why we're revisiting it is because even though they were arrested and initially charged with murder, the case did not go how it was supposed to go. One of them was allowed to plead no contest, so not even admitting guilt, and received a suspended sentence of 180 days, meaning he's out right now for a brutal beatdown and murder of a 17-year-old boy. And according to the father, this is because a lot of the prosecutors thought that Ethan Liming had it coming and he received a form of hood justice. Now, before we get into the story, before we break down the facts of the case, this video is sponsored, so let me toss it to the sponsor, but you'll want to come back over here when we talk about it on the other side. Do you have difficulty sleeping? I do, and it turns out surveys show that at least 164 million Americans report having difficulty falling asleep at least one night a week. And the thing is, it's not like this is no big deal. This is actually a major health problem that is often ignored by Americans. However, there is a solution for you that tens of thousands of Americans have tried. It's actually this wonderful sleep supplement over at sleepwithajw.com. This has 7 different ingredients to help you get a better, more well-rounded night of sleep, and it's 51% off at preparewithajw.com. And for those of you on mobile, click the More section and you will be able to get yourself additional free gifts with this. Go get this before the sale is ending. Trust me, your sleep will thank you. Now, for those of you who don't remember, the reason why the Ethan Liming story got any attention at all whatsoever is because this actually occurred in an adjacent parking lot to LeBron James Promise School in Ohio. This is LeBron James School where he's going to help all the underprivileged kids who got left back a bunch of times, send them to a new facility that, of course, has mural after mural of LeBron James, because isn't LeBron James such a great person? And the reason why this got so much attention is because after Ethan Liming was beaten to death in this parking lot, LeBron James and people affiliated with the Promise School refused to aid in the search for the people who then were on the loose at the time. And the reason why is because Ethan Liming is a white person, and he was beaten to death by 3 black individuals. Now, a bunch of people have talked about whether or not race was a motivation in this case, and I just want to point out that all evidence at this moment says that it was not a motivation in the beatdown. However, in the treatment by the prosecutors, it is clearly and obviously a motivation. And of course, that treatment is the prosecutors essentially throwing the case and treating these black perpetrators with kid gloves, because after it was reported that they were initially charged with murder and felony assault, the prosecution did everything possible to sabotage the case, to the point, again, where the charges were reduced because they threw the grand jury hearing, and one of the individuals was able to plead no contest and get sentenced to a suspended sentence of 180 days, meaning that one of these monsters is out on the streets right now on this very moment, despite the fact that they actually beat somebody to death in a parking lot and everybody saw what happened.
Beats fired from a toy gun and ended with a beating and a teen killed. Now his family is questioning the pursuit for justice. 3 people were originally charged with murder and felonious assault in Ethan Liming's death, but that all changed when the grand jury got the case.
So I just want to point out, before we get into this story any further, how up against it Ethan Liming's father actually is. This video came out 2 months ago. I just saw the story cross my radar yesterday. That's why I'm covering it right now. But the video where they had the exclusive interview of Mr. Liming, the father, has only 710 views at the time that I'm recording this video. Meaning 710 people watched this father plea for justice against a system that is clearly tilted in favor of the criminal and seeks to mitigate all forms of responsibility from them while painting Ethan Liming as some kind of a perpetrator.
I just don't feel like I can remain silent any longer.
Bill Liming's son, Ethan, was a star athlete, an A student, a rising senior. Summer vacation had just started when Ethan Liming was brutally beaten and killed. Now, months later, his dad feels like he is being victimized by the justice system.
I naively believed that, once the people that murdered my son were caught, that the justice system would just simply handle things. We've said all along that we were confident when the facts of the case were presented that Ethan would receive justice.
But the grieving father feels that hasn't happened.
The people who have the power to stand up for my son are not doing it, and so it's up to me as a father to speak for my son who cannot speak for himself.
It's so unfortunate to see this happen over and over again, where people have faith in the justice system only to find out that it's been captured by the left wing in this country. It's been captured by people who think that by dint of the color of Ethan Liming's skin, he is inherently evil, and the perpetrators, by dint of the color of their skin, are inherently victims, and they need to counterbalance the cosmic scales, even in a case where they murdered Ethan Liming in order to create some form of social justice.
17-year-old Ethan Liming and 3 friends drove to the I Promise school parking lot in Akron. Liming told me his son and another friend sat in the car, while the 2 others got out. Police say that's when a water bead was fired from a toy gun. It came from a splatterball water bead blaster aimed at a group of young men playing basketball. It was part of a TikTok challenge.
So, just to be clear, because this was initially reported as a water gun related incident, as I talked about in my previous video, this water bead thing is a little bit more serious than your regular water gun, but is still in the category of a toy. I actually found a video of somebody firing this, so I'm going to show you a clip of that so you could see that there is a little bit of oomph behind it, and it could be annoying to get hit with it, but it is in no way deserving of a beatdown to death of an individual because they decided to fire it at you due to a TikTok challenge.
We're going to go ahead and move all the way into full auto here and just unload into this target and see what happens. Yo, it might be 200 FPS. So the target is theoretically cleanable and reusable, but if you have any space behind it, it just obliterates its target.
Again, would I like to be hit with a splatterball gun? Absolutely not. But the thing is, this is in no way, shape, or form escalated to the point where murder is an acceptable response to it. And that is exactly what happened. I mean, you get wet a little bit, maybe you have a little bit of a stinging sensation, but that is not worthy of the beatdown that they gave to Ethan Liming, crushing his skull and caving in his chest, ultimately killing him.
Liming says Ethan's friends ran back to the car. The group of men initially ran away too.
When they figured out that the car, they were not being shot by a real gun, decided to go and confront Ethan and all of his friends who were in that car.
According to court transcripts, Ethan stepped out of the car. He was confronted by the 3, and that's when he fired a splatterball water bead. That led to the fight that killed him. Liming says his son was punched, kicked, stepped on, and beaten.
So Ethan's friends fired this water gun. These guys think that they're shot. They're startled. They run away, realize that they're not actually being shot, and then they run up to the car. So Ethan, unfortunately, got out of the car, tries to reason with them. He fires the water pistol so that they know it's just a harmless water pistol. And then the sucker punch happens. Then the beatdown happens. And the story is all the more tragic by the 911 tape and by the fact that this was all in response to kids kind of just horsing around.
One of Ethan's friends called 911.
We're at the I Promise school in Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
Our friend just got knocked out.
According to court transcripts, one of the 3, Donovan Jones, was kicking the car, trying to get in. And when he does, starts punching the other friends, trying to drag them from the car, while one is on the phone with 911.
How old is he?
So the kids in the car call 911. They're trying to get help. They say that their friend is knocked out. They're currently stomping his head in while he's knocked out, punching him repeatedly while he's on the ground. After their sucker punch, after their 3-on-1, because it took all 3 of them to take down the football player Ethan Liming, and now they're exacting their revenge. And one of these thugs is trying to break into the car to commit more assault. And because these guys are kids, they're afraid to get out of the car and end up confronting them. So Liming is getting beaten down while his friends are trying desperately to get 911 to show up to the scene. And ultimately, this is what resulted in the death of Ethan Liming.
Prosecutors say video surveillance captures them running from Jones. Police originally charged Deshaun Stafford, his brother Tyler, and their cousin Donovan Jones with murder. But in July, a grand jury indicted them on lesser charges. Liming blames the Summit County Prosecutor's Office for that decision. He doesn't believe all of the facts were presented.
Now, originally, they're charged appropriately. This is a murder. When you knock somebody out and then you continually assault him, you continually stomp on his head, you stomp on his chest, you cave his chest in after he's already knocked out, due to the fact that you were shot apparently by a water pistol that fires water beads, that is a murder. That is not self-defense by any stretch of the imagination. They were not facing a lethal threat, yet they continued to assault Liming, and originally they were charged appropriately for this assault. However, the charges, of course, were reduced.
Akron police said back in June race was not a factor in the killing.
There is nothing that we have in our possession right now, any information at all, indicating that race played a role in this homicide.
I find it hilarious how the cops come out and they say that there's nothing race related in this case immediately. That's the first thing that they go to. However, we look at what we see in this country over and over again, the disproportionate violence from Black Americans against other groups of people, and even if we can't find an individualized motive, and I think there is a motive in this case that is not race-related, you can't help but wonder whether or not the significant repeated beatdown that they delivered to this young, good-looking white person was in part due to the fact that it was a white person.
Nothing.
But Liming isn't so sure.
I would like to believe that race doesn't play a role in this. I'm married to a Filipino woman. She's got Black cousins.
Now, Liming's father goes on this whole thing about how his wife's Filipino and his family is a diverse cross-section of America. But the thing is, it's not about whether or not race was a motivation for these murderers to murder Ethan Liming. It's about whether or not they would treat the case differently due to race, which undoubtedly is what happened in this case.
So when I asked Brian LaPrinzi in the initial prosecutors meeting that I had with him, I asked him if race made a difference, if my son's skin color made a difference in the way in which they're approaching it. And he said yes.
The Summit County Prosecutor's Office told us in a statement in part, quote, Mr. Liming's accusations are not true. We met with the Liming family and their attorney and explained the facts and evidence which we were legally permitted to tell them about. At no time did the race of any of those involved play a factor in the charges.
Look, I'm just going to say it. I don't believe it. No chance, 0%, no way I think that race is not a factor in how they're treating this. Because if this case were reversed, you think the head of their police department would have come out day one and said race was not a motivation in this case? Absolutely not. Do you think LeBron James and the Promise School would have just said, the Promise School's safe, don't worry about it, thoughts and prayers to the kid, we don't really care about him? No, they would have led the manhunt if 3 white individuals, even with the motivation of the squirt gun being the thing that started the fight, happened. Those people are evil white racists and we got to go catch them and we're going to offer a reward and all that stuff. Race is entrenched in this case. It's the whole basis of why the prosecutors are going so soft on these 3 individuals who, again, knocked somebody out and continued to beat him while he was on the ground until he died.
Last month, Jones entered a no-contest plea to misdemeanor assault charges. He was given a suspended sentence of 180 days in jail and credited with time served.
He pled no contest to misdemeanor assault. For those of you who aren't aware, a no-contest plea is where you say, I think they have enough evidence to convict me. I'm not admitting guilt, but I am subjecting myself to consequences. The prosecution didn't even make this guy plead guilty to the crime. They let him plead no contest to misdemeanor assault and worked out a deal where he wouldn't spend another day in jail. He was released out on the streets, 180-day suspended sentence, for murdering somebody, for stomping somebody's head in, for beating somebody after they were unconscious, after they knocked him out, over a prank.
Liming is upset, angry, and frustrated.
A source who was at the initial prosecutors meeting between the detectives and the prosecutors described that prosecutors meeting as being very contentious. Some of the prosecutors wanting felonious assault charges and murder charges, others basically wanting no charges at all, with one of the prosecutors saying that Ethan received hood justice, which was a new term to me. I was unfamiliar with that terminology, hood justice. And that, I guess, implying that Ethan got what he deserved.
So obviously what's happening here is there's a dispute between the detectives and the woke district attorney and the office in that area where people are going back and forth. Some want the actual appropriate charges, which are felony assault and murder for all of these individuals who murdered Ethan Liming. Others want no charges at all. And apparently, during the course of this meeting, one of the prosecutors, the one who won the day, by the way, said that Ethan Liming received hood justice. Basically, he got what was coming to him. He deserved it. That is who is prosecuting cases in Akron, Ohio. That is who this father had to turn to after his son was murdered over, again, a water bead being fired at people playing basketball. Initially, not even fired by Ethan Liming. Him going out and deciding to try to talk these guys down resulted in him being beaten to death repeatedly. Those are the prosecutors. Those are the people that are supposed to be on his side. Those are the people who are supposed to advocate for his son. Those are the people that the police are going up against because they actually want appropriate charges. But now we don't have a prosecution team. We have a second defense team. And that's why they worked out this sweetheart deal where this guy didn't even have to admit guilt. He didn't even have to say he did anything wrong, stomping a kid's head in while he was unconscious.
Since June 2nd, Liming says his family has been living a nightmare. They've been harassed and received hateful emails.
We've received emails celebrating the fact that my son's head was crushed like a watermelon and laughing about how his chest was stomped in. I've been called a white moron.
Look, I get mean comments all the time. The internet is full of vicious, nasty people that love to send death threats, that love to say the nastiest thing humanly possible. So that's standard fare for me when I'm making content on the internet. It's a little bit different, though, when your son was viciously beaten to death by 3 thugs. And not only are you getting these mean messages celebrating that he was beaten to death, but that sentiment that your son deserved it because he was white, and those 3 thugs that attacked him are innocent angels because they're black, is reflected in the prosecution of the case.
Liming is calling for the Summit County Prosecutor's Office to take another look at the charges or step aside and let the Ohio Attorney General step in.
I wouldn't even be talking about the nasty, disgusting, racist people that are sending messages to a father grieving the loss of his son, if not for the fact that that sentiment, again, is being carried through and has been carried through in the prosecution of the case. And Liming is trying to get some form of justice. He's trying to get the AG or the FBI or somebody to investigate this.
In the meantime, Liming has called the FBI and asked them to investigate to find out if there is a civil rights violation.
But unfortunately, we know that none of those institutions are actually going to fight for him, institute any form of justice, because this is a sentiment that is held quite strongly at our highest levels of government. Look, none of this is ever going to bring Ethan Liming back. Unfortunately, these criminals took his life in a fit of rage, and that is always going to be so. But we have a justice system. We want consequences for this kind of behavior. And now what we're looking at is 3 individuals who viciously respond with violence, who attack people while they're still on the ground, who take joy and pleasure in beating somebody who's unconscious, that are likely to walk basically scot-free to do it again in another case. These guys need to be behind bars, all 3 of them. I'm so sick of this idea that the criminals are actually the kind-hearted, good individuals. I'm so sick of the sentiment at the district attorney's office that essentially they're part 2 of the public defenders. It's ridiculous, it's absurd, and the consequences of it are paid in blood. We shouldn't have violent killers like this out on the streets just after 180 days suspended sentence when they don't even have to admit their guilt. Now look, I'm going to leave the links to the Summit County Prosecutor's Office in the description of the video. I'm going to recommend, if you're outraged and you want to demand justice for Ethan Liming, that you call them on their publicly available phone number, which is 330-643-2800. Be respectful, be kind, demand equal justice under the law for Ethan Liming, and don't do anything that would shame the Liming family, Ethan's father, or anyone like that. But this is an outrage, and we have to stand up to these prosecutors who refuse to do their damn job time and time again. There's a reason why Akron is such a hellhole, and part of that is the fact that the prosecution apparently is more interested in pandering to the criminal than actually doing justice. But hey, those are just my thoughts, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, you show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the dereliction of duty in the Ethan Liming case. Till next time.